Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee here at Northumberland County Council on the 4th of September 2025. Can I start off today's meeting using the agenda with the first item, which is apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Spriddle.
I'm not aware of any other apologies. I noticed that there's at least one member not here, but they may be running a little bit late. Move on to the second item on the agenda today, which are the minutes of the meeting which was held on the 17th of July, and it is points of accuracy in the minutes. So are there any items in those minutes which those present don't feel was an accurate recording of that meeting? I'm not seeing any indication from anyone. So therefore, I'll happily sign those off as an accurate record of that meeting. We now move to a standard item on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. We will all have done our declarations of interest. But what I would say to you is, as a belt and braces for everyone, if there is anything you ever see on an agenda which looks like, I might have a personal prejudicial employment, whatever interest in that, please just flag it either in advance of the meeting or before we come on to the agenda items. So on that basis, has anyone got a disclosure of interest in any item taking place today? And again, I'm not seeing any notice of that. Before we start the actual meeting this morning, I just want to introduce to you, sitting on my left-hand side, Councillor Michaela Horncastle, who is Vice Chair of Family and Children's Overview and Scrutiny. Michaela couldn't make the last meeting, but this is her first substantive meeting, so I just wanted an opportunity for everyone to meet Michaela, and you'll no doubt be getting emails from Michaela and myself over the next few months about lots of items, and I'll pick that up at the end of today's meeting. So welcome, Michaela, and I'm sure you'll find this a really, really good committee. Some very good people here. Okay, let's get on to the substantive part of today's meeting, which is item number 4, we'll take first, which is the Children, Young People and Education presentation, which is going to be led initially by Audrey Kingham, and then we've got a series of officers who are sitting here, who will introduce themselves to you, and will each be taking a section on the report, which you'll have an opportunity to listen to. It is overview at this stage, but obviously there'll be an opportunity for some questions and perhaps some actions at the end of that. So Audrey, if I can please hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. Good to see everybody start of a new academic year for us in Northumberland, and clearly for our broader services in terms of children's. It's an all-year 52-week operation. So really important, I think, to start off a new academic year and actually a new Scrutiny Committee membership to understand the priorities that we have in our children's services teams, and we thought we'd take the opportunity today to share those with you. All of the work throughout the year will pin back to these priorities. There are a number of statutory reports that come through, and each of those throughout the year will reference to the priorities so you can see how they tie together. It is probably, as Chair has already said, the one and only occasion that you will see the team all together in one place. So we're only missing 2 members, so you wouldn't normally have this breadth of everybody from the senior team in children's here. But I do think it's really important that you see that it's not just David, Vicky and I who do this leadership work. It is the specialist leadership skills of all of our senior teams who lead children's and the impact of the work that they do. So I'll just give a very brief overview and then I'll hand over. We're not intending for this to be a very, very long presentation, so just, don't worry that we're going to talk at you. It is an overview, as Chair has said. The idea is that from the overview, you may also pick up some other areas that over the year you would like us to talk more about, and to scrutinise further as well, and that's the opportunity from this. So, here we go. So, Our vision as children's services is there. I'm not going to read it out to you, and nor am I going to go through all of the icons and images that are on there, but it gives you a flavour of the breadth, and you will hear this from the team who are about to talk to you. There are a number of phrases on there. We are probably the most regulated and risk, if you like, aspect of Northumberland County Council, and you would expect that. We are looking after safeguarding, developing our children for the future, so you would expect that. So you will see a number of inspectorates up there that again, you will get the opportunity over time. You will hear ahead of any inspection because you get the annual reports, but also you will get overviews and the reports to be able to analyse and ask questions about. So a number of areas on there that I really wanted to just briefly pick out. And I'm going to pick out corporate parents first, because you will hear us talking with you, to you, and supporting you to become our champions of corporate parenting. We talked about that the last time, and that is extremely important. It is a statutory responsibility for us all as officers and for you all as members. So we will talk much more about that. There are a number of phrases that we use regularly in children's, and I have threatened to buy T-shirts for some of these on occasions. But we talk very much about doing as much as we can as close to home as possible. Whether that is trying to keep our children as close to their home as possible when we're considering residential placements, or whether it's a school placement that we are looking to develop provision for as close to home. And you will have heard us talk about that over time, those who've been members for a wee while, particularly thinking about some of the development builds and some of the areas that colleagues will talk about, so our special support bases, etc., trying to keep the support the children need, whether that's in education or in care, as close to home as possible, and reduce their travel time, reduce any distance that there is there. So we do talk about that a lot. You will hear us all say that we think on many occasions we know ourselves well, and actually that's your scrutiny to check that we know ourselves well, and as a council we know ourselves well in terms of what we do in children's. And the priorities that David and Vicky will take you through in each of their service areas are determined and evidence-based around what we review, what we understand, what we need to do next to be able to take that a step further, or to narrow a gap that we have found, or something that we could do even better. And that relentless challenge for ourselves that we place upon ourselves to do better every single time. So a phrase we won't apologise for saying, and I'm sure you'll want us to be saying that. And then the last phrase from me that I often use, and you will hear me say quite often, is a moment in time. So at this moment in time, children's services, in terms of our local authority area inspection, we are badged as outstanding, and that was from May 2024. But I am really clear that that was a moment in time, and we continue that relentless move forward. We have the highest schools Ofsted performance ratings in Northumberland, and that isn't just about us as a team, and that, you know, Dave very, very much timely is talking about the investment in school improvement and how we work with schools, but this is all school leaders and everybody who works in schools and all of our settings across Northumberland. So at any point when we are doing exceptionally well, I am really clear as the exec lead and statutory officer that it is a moment in time. So I wouldn't ever want anyone to think that we were complacent at any point. Our skills inspection was a whisker away from being outstanding in January this year. Really, really close to it, and disappointingly for the team didn't get to that outstanding, but we got a very good. That's not an official grading, but you know. So that moment in time is really important for you to understand how we view ourselves and sort of hold the lens up and hold the mirror up. And on that basis, I'm going to pass on to the team who will start to take you through this.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky McLeod, I'm the Director of Children, Young People and Families, and you're going to hear from me today about some of our key priorities, the work that we've been doing to meet those key priorities, and then once I've finished talking I will give a little bit around Marie Roberts' area, and then my other 3 heads of service will take you through the work that we do in Children, Young People and Families as well. So you'll see up here we've got 4 priorities that's been identified, and in the last scrutiny that we had, we talked a little bit around our self-evaluation and how we prepare for Ofsted and the work that we do. So very much going through that process helps us to develop the key priorities, and these become our corporate priorities as well and into our plan. So the first priority that we've got is prevention and early support. So we want all of our children and young people to have the best possible childhood with happy, healthy and safe childhoods, reaching their full potential and ready for adulthood. And that is a high level priority, but underneath that we've got a number of different targets that's wrapped up in our quality assurance framework. Priority 2 is about aspirations for our cared for and care experienced community, and this is when we talk about corporate parenting and everybody's roles and responsibilities as corporate parent and how we support those children and young people. So we look at the council and its partners working together to support our children and young people to feel nurtured, valued, heard and understood, and corporate parenting sits within that. Priority 3, keeping children and young people safe and supporting them to thrive. That's really key for us. We want all of our children and young people to thrive. So what can we do as a service, as a collective, to support our children, young people and their families to thrive? So we say when children and young people need support through our statutory services, we will work with the families and our multi-agency partners to support and to safeguard our children and young people. Priority 4 is about our workforce. We cannot do all of the work that we do without having a stable workforce and without having the vacancies filled. So we want to extend our recruitment and retention strategy in social work to include the children's social care workforce. So we've been very focused on how can we fill social work vacancies, but how can we expand that and how can we look at other areas that we know are key to us as well. That will allow us to reduce reliance on agency social workers and to recruit foster carers and residential home staff to support our children, have a workforce who are well supported and choose to stay in Northumberland County Council. And as I've already said, each priority area has a series of actions and it links into the corporate plan, and progress is monitored through our continuous improvement plan. So we have regular meetings as a team to look at where are we at, what are we doing well, and what do we need to further work on. Next slide, please. So some of the work that we've been doing in 2025, and clearly this isn't all of it because there's a lot more behind this, but this is about some of the key areas. So we have had a policy paper that came out in December of 2024, with a further paper that came out in March this year around the children's social care reforms. So there is a Families First partnership, and that is about a move for the government and every local authority to strengthen prevention through the implementation of family help, the development of multi-agency safeguarding teams, as well as the implementation of family group conferencing. As well. We have got a board that's established, we have got work streams that focus on these key areas, and in October we will start to test and learn in the family help area of the work. And that does involve the movement of some social workers to sit in early help and to sit within our family hubs as well, and how can we shift the narrative around the work that we do into more of a prevention element. So we've been working really hard on that, and the officers who are here today as well are all key parts of that. We want to continue to develop and strengthen our family hubs and the support that is delivered and available within our communities, and we see that as being key in terms of the work around the reforms as well. We want to deliver on the policy paper, which is giving every child the best start in life, that has come out more recently and builds on the best start in life work that had already started. We want to strengthen our commitment as corporate parents in developing further our accountability alongside a whole council approach and partner agency involvement. So that work has started. We've been into a variety of different meetings now talking about people's roles and responsibilities as corporate parenting, and we have developed 5 work streams within that area. So Care for Me, Talented Me, Involve Me, Healthy Me and Support Me. And at the centre of this work is our children and young people and their voice, and we work really closely with our participation team to actually get their views and their thoughts on this as well. We are having a celebrating achievement event that's set to take place in October, and that's for our cared for children and care leavers as well, to really celebrate where they're at and how they are doing as well. One of the key focuses from our priorities is about how we keep children and young people within their families and within their networks, how we keep them close to home, how we keep them within the communities that they know, and things such as even like the dialects that they're used to. If they're not hearing, you know, the Northumberland accent, the Geordie accent, and they're somewhere down south, then, you know, for them that's strange. So we really are committed to how we do that. And, you know, we have been very successful in terms of planning, so Northumberland leads within the UK, and I think you might have heard a little bit about this in different forums. So 70 children over the course of the last year, that's 30% of children who required a permanence plan, we actually kept them within their family network. And again, you'll see there the regional average for that is 21%, and the national average is actually only 11%. And that is really down to the really strong governance, the oversight and the commitment of our safeguarding and permanence teams as well. And Patrick will introduce himself. He chairs the meetings that has oversight of our permanence and decision making within that area as well. And then that's the development of our children's homes and the commitment to our foster carers as well. We have got a plan that takes us all the way through to 2020-30, and we are absolutely focused on that with the board that's now established, and absolutely looking at how do we develop our own residential homes, how do we open additional homes to keep our children safe. And we're really pleased that last week we've gotten confirmation from Ofsted we are progressing with 2 of those homes that we're hoping will open in the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks as well, within our local communities. And we will be building on that as we go throughout this year and into next year as well. So it's a real key area for us. We were successful in the bid for funding from the DFE. I think every local authority in the country put in for this around complex needs, and we were one of the few that did get selected for that. So we're really proud of the work that's been done on that. Our social workforce is stable. We've had a key focus on the recruitment and on the retention of social worker roles, and that's led to very few vacancies. We're at the lowest use of agency social workers we have ever had. As of just yesterday, and Patrick updated this number for me, we've got 4 agency workers, and some of them have been about covering sickness within some of the West, I believe it was. Most agency staff have converted to permanent posts, and we regionally now track that and monitoring it. And we are the highest within the region for converting agency staff to permanent staff. And I think that's really key for us in terms of understanding our staff and the people who join us as agency like working for us. They feel safe, they feel well supported. So the latest North East Regional report for April to June showed we had a 60% conversion rate, the highest in the region, so 3 out of 5 converted for us. Most of the local authorities have significant high number of agency staff, and very few are converting into permanent posts. So it's been a key area of focus for us and will remain a key area of focus for us, and we will be expanding that into other areas of the workforce as well. And that's that element of it. I am going to cover Marie Roberts' area now. So Marie is the Head of Service for Social Care and Early Help. She does have what we now call our targeted young people services. So within that, there's youth justice, sorted, exploitation, missing, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, and our young people's offer. She also has responsibility for our residential homes and the support services that sit around that. So our children's home, our secure home, which is Kylo House, which is a national provision, our accommodation team, the Edge of Care team as well, and family group conferencing. So that key area of work that we're doing as part of the reforms sits within Marie's area around how do we prevent escalation through the system, and how do we keep things at an early help element. So she's, in terms of early help and prevention, she's got 11 family hubs alongside outreach sites as well that are actually dotted around our county. And she also has a prevention and early help support teams as well as family help. family placement. So we've got fostering that sits with Marie. We've got adoption, kinship care and family time. So we have to deliver family time for those children that are in our care. They have to be able to see their parents. They have to be able to see their other relatives and potentially siblings. And she's also got responsibility for the disabled children's team as well. So there's 2 teams within there and a home support team. That's all I'm going to be saying now. I am going to pass over to the team and to Patrick Boyle.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Good morning, everyone. I'm Patrick Boyle. I'm a head of service for the Safeguard and Social Work teams in Northumberland. So I'm very happy to be here to share a little bit about the work that I do in Northumberland. I'm from Northumberland, qualified as a social worker in 1994, and pleased to say that I worked for Northumberland for like 31 years. And I've had a really interesting and very varied career in Northumberland, but I'm very privileged to have been in Northumberland for those 31 years to support some of the most vulnerable children and young people in Northumberland. I thought I would probably start off by just sharing a little bit about the numbers of children and young people that we're working with at any one point in time. So at the moment, we're working with just over 2,000 children and young people. The majority of those will be on a child in need basis. There'll be a percentage are supported on a child protection plan, and also a number who are cared for. That's either cared for with family members, extended family members, with parents in foster care or in residential care as well. So just over 2,000 in total children and young people that we're working with. So some of the areas I'm responsible for are our front door, which also incorporates our MASH, our multi-agency safeguarding team. And just to tell you a little bit about the multi-agency partners who are part of that multi-agency team. So we have early help, family help, we have social care, we have police, education, health, housing, linking with the fire service, and that's just to name but a few of the multi-agency partners that we work with. And I think one of the things that's unique about Northumberland is it is a fully integrated multi-agency team, and it's also joint with adults as well, so it's children and adults. So it's a very much a holistic approach to assessing and supporting families in Northumberland. We also have satellite duty arrangements in the north and the west of the county. Northumberland is a huge county, so in terms of making sure that we have that consistency of that support and approach, we have satellite duty arrangements in Berwick and west of the county as well, linking in with our front door. Audrey's already mentioned Ofsted. We had our Ofsted inspection last year. Ofsted spent quite a bit of time at our front door on the MASH, and in the verbal feedback that described our front door and MASH as being on steroids, that actually wasn't in the actual written feedback, but I think they were very, very impressed in terms of its effectiveness and also the impact in terms of safeguarding and supporting children and young people in Northumberland. I think just to also share, our front door and MASH have been shortlisted for a national award and the Children and Young People's Award. So yeah, we're one of 4 in Northumberland that have been shortlisted. So the front door and MASH, our foster and adoption service, and our early help and family help service as well. So fingers crossed we'll come back with some awards in October as well. We also have social care locality teams across the whole county, so we have them in County Hall, covering the central area, in Blythe in the southeast, and also in the north and the west of the county. And we also have our pre-birth team, which was established in 2022, and there's a little bit of information there about the pre-birth team as well. So we cover the full range of work from pre-birth up to the age of 18. Child in need, CP and care proceedings and cared for work as well. So it's that full range of work. Vicky's already mentioned some of the legal work that we do. So on a weekly basis, I chair our legal gateway meeting, also chair legal tracking meetings and permanence performance meetings as well to make sure that children and young people, the decisions are made at the right time, but also that we achieve permanence for our children and young people as well. And again, this came out very positive in the Ofsted report, and we also received very positive feedback from CAFCAS and also the court in the area as well. There is a 26-week timescale for achieving permanence for children and young people through care proceedings. This time last year, we were at 25 weeks, so well within that timescale. It's gone slightly above the 25 weeks, and that's because of the complexity of some of the work, the need for the additional assessments, and also largely due to court timetabling as well. So we're performing really well in that area and securing permanence for children and young people at the earliest stage. We also have a cared for team and a care experience team. The cared for team at the moment is currently for children and young people who are 14 plus, over the age of 14, but we are looking at that in terms of the reforms and hopefully having an all age range cared for team, so a dedicated cared for team for cared for children within Northumberland. And I think I just want to probably end with the quote. I can't actually read that from here, but there's a really positive quote from one of the parents who was supportive through the pre-birth team. But I'll let you read that in your own time as well. I can't quite see it from here.
I'll quickly
Do you
read
want
that
to read
out
it,
for you.
Vicky?
Yous have been lovely to work with and a massive support, understanding and supportive. Yous want to be proud of yourselves as social workers because if every family feels the way we do towards you, you both deserve a medal and yous are a brilliant team and should be proud of the work yous do.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jane Walker and I'm Head of Virtual School Services. I'm also from Northumberland. I have a background in teaching and school leadership and I've worked here in Northumberland for about 20 years now. My role has always been around equalities and inclusion and education support for who we might consider to be vulnerable or disadvantaged pupils. My current portfolio, I work with 4 teams and the common denominator in them is around safeguarding and education. So I have worked through the Education and Skills Service before, but I'm currently managed through Children's Social Care to have that kind of safeguarding lens on the work that we do with schools and families. So the virtual school team is at the core of what we do. That is an education support team for cared for children and care leavers. So we do know about children in early years and pre-early years as they come into the care system, but we provide support for them once they're in school settings and of statutory school age. It's a hands-on team, so they deliver therapies. We have educational psychologists who work with the children directly. We work with the foster carers. We work with the families and the parents if they're involved in the child's care plan. Similarly, we work with care leavers, making sure that they've got pathways out of school and into education, training and employment when they move into adulthood and gain that independence. We also have an oversight role for previously cared for children and children in kinship care. That's really around providing advice and guidance to schools and education settings and also the parents and the carers, sometimes the young people themselves. And we also have a role now in promoting the education of children with a social worker or who have had a social worker. That's more of a strategic role. We sort of identify good practice. We work with practitioners and we work with schools to make sure we know what's working for those children and that in Northumberland there is improvement in the education outcomes for those children as a group. I also work with the Education Welfare Service, so obviously the core of that is around attendance improvement. It does what it says on the tin there, but we also identify and work with children who are at risk of missing education and have a multi-agency planning process in place to make sure they're re-engaged as soon as possible with full-time education. So that's a big part of what the team does. We monitor arrangements around children whose parents choose to educate them at home. So around elective home education, making sure the transition from school into their home arrangements is smooth and that suitable education is being provided for them. And we also issue licenses for children who are in entertainment and employment, which is statutory if the child is under 16. The school safeguarding team is a small but perfectly formed team. They have a role in making sure that all of the settings in Northumberland, the education settings, comply with statutory guidance around keeping children safe in education. So we always refer to that as safeguarding standards, making sure that the standards are being met, which they are in our Northumberland schools. They also have a presence at the front door to children's services, so in the MASH, and every day they take part in the triage of children's concern notifications so that we can liaise with families, with schools, provide the right information to make sure the safeguarding around those children is swift. A big part of the role is also the training of the designated safeguarding leads in schools, so every school has to have somebody in that role. Obviously, they have to be trained around the safeguarding and the requirements of keeping children safe in education. So that's delivered through that team. And we're also very active across the Northumberland Children and Adult Safeguarding Partnership. And in actual fact, I chair the Safer in Education subgroup of that partnership as well. So a lot of involvement there. And The last team is the engagement teaching team. That is a teaching service for children with health and medical needs who, because of those needs, are unable to attend school for a period of time. So we teach those children a core curriculum in 4 different venues across the county. We support them into that provision and re-engage them with education. We support them back into school when they're well enough to attend full time again. So in terms of the priorities of children's social care, we're very much involved in priorities 1, 2 and 3. We want to intervene early. We want to prevent the need for any children to actually have to be open to any of these services. So we're very much involved in working with our partners, and especially our partners in social care, to make sure we provide the right support for the families and the children before anything escalates. Obviously, we have a big role in corporate parenting. From an education perspective, we see ourselves as good corporate parents, and we want the best for our children so they can do their best in school and have those very smooth pathways into adulthood post-16. And obviously, we have a role around keeping children safe, as do the schools. They work with the children all day, every day during term time. So that's a key part in keeping children safe, in protecting children. And that's really where a lot of our role is discharged, and we have a real impact on what happens for children in school. So that's the virtual school.
Morning everyone, I'm Victoria McKay, I'm Head of Service for Quality Assurance. I had the pleasure last time of coming to speak to yourselves in regards to our self-assessment. But today I just want to touch on some of the other things that I have responsibility for myself. So as you can see on the slide, the Quality of Practice framework has 7 steps to that. In terms of how we achieve quality assurance, a bit like Audrey touched on before, we know that our inspections are a moment in time, but how do we continue to ensure ourselves that we're having an impact? So under all of the wonderful work that Jane and Patrick has spoken about, how do we have oversight scrutiny in terms of how that looks and feels for our families and our young people on the ground? So how we achieve that, we do that through audits. So we have thematic audits, we have quarterly audits. So if there is an area of concern or worry or an area that we wish to develop, that's something that me and the officers look at in terms of what we call deep dive audits. We have the great pleasure of going out and spending quality time with our services as well, which we call practice days. It helps us assess any key lines of inquiries, but also within that, and most importantly for ourselves, is that we gain feedback from our families and children to ensure that the service that they're receiving is what we should be delivering. We also cover training and complaints. So if there is any cause of concern, we try to reflect and learn upon that. So the quality assurance framework for me is not just a quality assurance framework, it's ensuring that we have a culture of learning within Northumberland and that we strive to achieve better. The quality assurance framework doesn't just touch children's social care and early help, it also covers our SEND and NCASP, which is our local safeguarding board. Alongside the quality assurance framework, I also manage our independent reviewing officers, and they also have a role as child protection advisors, chairing our child protection conferences. Within that service, there is also our designated officer, or you might hear that referred to as a LADO. And we also have the great pleasure of having, over the last 12 months, developing our participation service. So we now have 4 participation members that cover all things children, and some of the work that they've achieved over the last 12 months is not just our youth parliament, youth cabinet, but they've also we've also completed surveys with our young people. They have engaged at the end of last term in helping advise us on what our SEND strategy should look like and what it should say. They've also supported and will be helping support and develop us on what our corporate parenting strategy looks and feels like as well. We've had a massive response from our young people, which I shared with you last time. Over 1,000 young people asked to be part of participation in Northumberland. So that's a massive voice for us in terms of what they want us to achieve on their behalf. I also manage the domestic abuse service within Northumberland, which we co-commission alongside North Tyneside. I manage all of the business support element, which, you know, without them, we couldn't function as a service in terms of being able to achieve what we do. I have the systems and performance team, and as of yesterday, I took on board our social work academy, so very much like Vicky advised in terms of aligning our academy and how that grows into the offer for all of social care, so how we support our residential staff, how we support our early help workers, how we recruit more students, more apprentices into social care, is all under that remit at the moment. So yes, so that's me in a nutshell. So I will hand you over, I think it's to David.
Thank you for the opportunity to share a few views around Education, Send and Skills Directorate. The Education, Send and Skills Directorate is coordinated around the four core functions that you can see in front of you. Those core functions are set from a variety of sources. It's certainly integral in terms of our statutory responsibilities. There's direction from DFE on multiple occasions. We also have an education strategy board, which is a board led by the educational providers in Northumberland. It's influenced by the council policy, and it's also influenced by the scrutiny and feedback, as an example from this committee, for all the reports that we bring to you through the year. The culmination of the reports we bring to you through the year is the Education Send and Skills annual report, which normally comes to you December, January time. And it's actually the findings, if you like, from that report, which influence the functions and the priorities for the service going forwards. It is a case of many hens make light work, and we're obviously attempting to cover as much of the sector as humanly possible. So just very briefly, the current core functions are to support all the educational settings to meet the needs of all learners and their families. So to put that into context, we're looking at about 42,000 learners in Northumberland of all ages. We're talking about 168 schools of multiple different sizes. We're talking about 278 early years providers, some of which are quite large organisations, right down to individual childminders. We're talking about the Education Skills Service, which Mick Burton will talk you through shortly, and the delivery of post-16 and adult education. So it's and others. It's a really broad set of settings and schools. We've got a number of statutory educational duties that the council hold. We could spend an hour going through our statutory responsibilities, but right from sufficiency of childcare places through to sufficiency of school places, through to our statutory responsibilities around special educational needs. The actual law and guidance on that, it goes to thousands of pages actually of statutory responsibilities. We try and distill that out into the functions that you see before you at the moment. We certainly lead on delivering the educational priorities of the Northumberland Corporate Plan. So particularly within that is the economic elements and also the equalities elements. And so we're strongly influenced from that direction. And we also hold a core function of monitoring the performance of the education system, giving you an overview of the size and complexity of that system, but it's important that council members in particular understand the performance across Northumberland, and therefore that can influence policy and practice going forwards. Next slide, please. To support the functions that I've just mentioned, which are don't change dramatically over time, for the academic year just gone and for the academic year still to come, we're in the middle of working on these particular key priorities. So this is more the action end of what the delivery of those core functions brings to us. the heads of service take a lead in coordinating this, but obviously we are massively supported by all the educational providers, the schools, the early years settings, Northumberland College, a whole range of post-16 providers and employability experts. We're usually supported by those parts of the organisations in terms of to do the delivery, but this is the way that we are supporting them to do their best and to have the highest aspirations for the education system across Northumberland. I'm not, let's say, going to go through each of those sort of individually. The annual report itself will report specifically on those areas. And it gives the absolute fine detail of where we've had successes and where we've still got work to do. And that in turn will influence the setting of the core functions and the priorities for coming years. Next slide, please. Just to highlight some strengths, and I'll just note that these are areas that have developed over time. These haven't always been strengths in Northumberland, so this has been an onward journey to get to this point. And to echo some of the colleagues in social care, and Audrey from earlier, we're far from complacent, though there is some success to mention. You're going to get a breakdown shortly about our Ofsted outcomes over the last number of years. We are the highest set of Ofsted outcomes for both schools and early years providers that we've ever had. That's through partnership with those schools, of course. They're the ones that are delivering on a daily basis. But I think there is quite a significant track record of improving both individual and groups of schools to do their very best from an Ofsted perspective, and therefore ultimately do their very best in terms of delivering for the residents in Northumberland. We talk regularly and report regularly to this committee about SEND needs across Northumberland. It's a huge part of our work, but again we've got significant demonstrations of growth in inclusive practice, more young people having their needs well met close to home, and also continuing development of specialist provision both on mainstream sites and across our special schools, which is a huge benefit to the residents. Mr Cookson here, Dave will probably mention a little bit more about the alliances model. This is a model we've introduced to support schools in working well together. I had high aspirations for this particular programme, but actually the delivery and the development of that programme has been, in my view here, exceptional in terms of, I think we've got 70 plus schools involved from a starting point of no schools this time last year. So really quite an impressive development. You'll all be aware of the government plans for and implementation of those plans for childcare provision. So additional hours of funded childcare from 9 months of age through to the 30-year rollout, which we've been involved in for a number of years. That's been a massive growth in the sector, and managing and funding and supporting the sector in order to deliver on those sufficiency places is complex. Huge, again, support from the sector, some really excellent professionals working in all our early years settings, but also well supported by the team and the direction from the council and the directorate. Our Northumberland skills participation and achievement rates are again exceptionally high. This wasn't always the case for Northumberland, and there's certainly been a transformation in that service over the last 3 years. Again, Mick Burton will deliver a little bit on that later on. Our central services available to support all schools and settings are strong. We've reshaped and readjusted how some of that's doing. Some really strong developments across the SEND teams in particular, and Jessica Conway maybe might mention those shortly. Partnerships across our academy sector, partnerships with other local authorities, partnerships with schools outside of our local authority, partnerships where we're supporting, for example, some schools in Cumbria at the moment, etc., I think is a strength. Our combination and our work with the diocese also are currently strengths. And again, this is working together towards common goals. And our dynamic approach to change, the education sector is rife with change, new challenges appear, demand continues to increase. absolutely right that we should be held to high aspirations for all young people, and the service and the directorate as a whole are constantly looking to improve, develop, find out where we're getting it wrong and put it right. And I think it's actually a strength of the service. Just going to pass over, I'm not sure which slide's up next. It is Dave Cookson next, who can talk you through the School Improvement Service.
Yeah, good morning everybody. Dave Cookson, Head of the School Improvement Service. This will be my 31st year in education. I'm not born in Northumberland, unlike Patrick, but I have worked in the North East, at North Tyneside in particular, for the vast majority of my teaching career, and lived in the county for the last 25 years. Across the School Improvement Service, we have 6 different teams. The early years team, which as David just mentioned, are looking at childcare sufficiency as well as early years provision. Northumberland Music, who provide small group tuition, class tuition, and all the ensembles across Northumberland. Governance and Data Protection team, who work with school governors in terms of training, keeping them the right side of the guidance, and looking after all of the data protection elements through GDPR. The HR team, who provide that guidance again with complying with the law across all kind of human resources areas. The school's IT team, who provide either software guidance to schools to ensure that they're doing things correctly and improving the skills of the young people. And the school improvement team, which I'm going to present a report on shortly. We try and ensure that all of the adults in schools are as well supported as possible, and that support can come through challenge. We do an awful lot of challenging. We try and do that as nicely as we can, but our aim is to ensure that every school functions as efficiently and effectively as possible. And I think when I go through the school improvement report, you'll see some of the outcomes, and we think we're doing a good job, but there is still more to do. That's it.
Primarily is to provide and support post-16 opportunities across the county that are both meaningful and lead to positive destinations and outcomes. As David outlined before, the service operates actually under the name of Northumberland Skills. We are actually Northumberland County Council, but that's our marketing name, for want of a better description. The service, as I say, is wholly grant funded. That grant funded comes from both the DFE and from the North East Combined Authority for adult skills budget. We have a number of different provision types that we support and deliver on, listed on the slide there. 16 to 18 full-time learning, which includes mainstream and SEND. 19 plus adults for part-time learning in the main part-time learning. Apprenticeship training, commercial training and employability programs for adults. The service supports the following sector areas. From an engineering perspective, we support advanced manufacturing, welding and fabrication. In a construction sector, we pretty much support nearly all of the main trades, the wet trades, but also building services, which primarily is electrical installation. We have a SEND offer, as outlined before there, and within that we also have a support internship program, which is in our second year of running, which has had some pretty successful outcomes from the first year of that. We still do offer, as a service, some leisure programs for adults. Across the county, we have also supporting apprenticeships. We are our own apprenticeship provider, and the sectors that we support currently, are engineering, construction, childcare, teaching assistant apprenticeships as we stand at the moment. We also have 2 employability contracts as part of the service. One is a work and health programme, DWP supported, and the other is Restart. That's pretty much an overview of the Skills and Employability Service to date.
Hi all, I'm Jessica Conway, Head of SEND. I was absolutely delighted to take on this role in January of this year, albeit I feel like I've been here 10 years and I'm really part of the community now in a good way. And I started my career off as a science teacher at Sunderland University, and then spent quite a lot of time working within the Westminster Borough in London, and then as an education lead in SEND across the Eastern region within a local authority. So it's been absolutely wonderful to come back to the North East and see all of the wonderful work going on and to continue that hard work. Within my service as the head of SEND, I've got 5 key services there who all are working extremely hard to keep up with the demand that David Street mentioned around SEND that we are seeing within Northumberland, but also nationally. We have the high incidence needs team, and there we have listed within that team, we have the autism specialist teaching services, the emotional wellbeing and behavioural specialist teaching services. We also have a team that supports specific learning difficulties, and also we work very closely with our health colleagues in all areas here, but also speech, language and communication needs as well. We also have the educational psychology team who have a statutory role, who continue to support around our education, health and care plan arena. But we are also delighted within Northumberland, and it's not necessarily the national picture, but within Northumberland we are really proud to continue the wider traded and free work that our educational psychology service offer to support the development of ordinarily available provision across Northumberland, such as working and delivering on our senior mental health lead training. We also work closely with our health colleagues within that team, and therefore really focusing on meeting needs within mainstream settings and keeping our children and young people close to home. We have the low incidence needs team there. So in there we offer our sensory support services. We continue to support at least 522 pupils and families, as well as continuing to look into innovative ways to support those children and young people with hearing and vision and multisensory impairment needs. And again, working very, very closely with our health colleagues in that area and care. We have our portage team there, which is our home visiting educational service to support those families with some of the most complex needs at such an early young age. It's very, very key. It's a high demand service, again statutory. And we have a nuanced approach to have the English as an additional language team within the SEND team. Just to note, this is not a SEND specific team. It is a very small formed and impactful team. We are grant funded in that area, and we continue to support our Persian, Russian, Arabic and wider families. They also offer SLA work, so service level agreement work, to support those families with an additional language and the children and young people around, such as GCSEs, with some real great impact in that area. We have the Preparing for Adulthood team, which is a real line of inquiry nationally in this area. We're very proud to have this team. We have within that service our careers service, who works very closely alongside our statutory team, and with a real key focus to ensure that our young people stay within education or work and move into employment, and again working very closely with the skills team. And last but not least, we have our statutory assessment service, who review and all statutory processes around the education, health and care plan arena. With our key purpose really within our inclusive education services to support and enable schools to ensure we are identifying special educational needs and disabilities at the earliest opportunity, and therefore putting in the most appropriate provision to ensure our children and young people raising and reach their aspirations in adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning everybody. Neil Dorwood, Senior Manager for Education Development and Collaborative Projects. You may be familiar with me from the last Facts Act when I brought the Ofsted report along to that one, so good to see you again. My role is really about connecting the education, workforce, economy and residents. It's about removing barriers and silo working, and I do a lot of collaboration across council, education providers, the private sector, internal, external stakeholders, and a lot of work with children and young people too. And really it's all about developing those education, employment and training pathways which focus on Northumberland priority sectors and inequalities and also preparation for adulthood. Do a lot of work with Jess around SEND, a lot of work with Mick around capital investments, the Ofsted inspection, Vicky around residential care capital projects, around foster care sufficiency and around school transport with the student team. And as an example of some of the collaborative work, some of the external work, a lot of work with legal, planning and economic development and growth around the inward investments in Northumberland. For example, the QTS £10 billion data centre, whereby we've developed a strategy for employment, education and training, which will ensure that priority groups benefit from that investment, including SEND, care experienced children, and secure a 15-year commitment to actually deliver on the priorities for those community groups. So that's an example of that externally facing collaborative sort of project work that goes on. And you know, a 15-year commitment like that hopefully will put in place a culture and a legacy which is probably not too easily removed following that, and it will continue that investment to deliver on those quite significant outcomes for our young people, and just an extension to that education system, beyond education and into that lifelong kind of career and opportunity.
Morning everybody, I'm Sue Aviston, I'm Head of School Organisation and Resources for Northumberland County Council. I've lived in the county for 25 years and I've brought my 2 children up here, but you can probably tell I'm not originally from Northumberland. I was born in the West Midlands. But my area of responsibility is vast and varied. And it does look a little bit random, but when it all comes together, we deliver some fantastic outcomes for the children and young people across Northumberland. So one of my areas of responsibility is around capital development. And again, I think I'm probably one of the luckiest officers in the whole of the country because our county council sees the investment in our children and young people as a key priority. And therefore, I have a budget of about 160 million over the next 3 years in order to bring about those improvements within our building. So more than happy to offer any tours of any of the investment that we've made for any committee members that would actually would like to come and see some of the fantastic work that, again, my small and beautiful form team actually deliver. I'm also got responsibility around the buildings and assets. So again, we need to make sure that the buildings that we have got, that we're not replacing, are fit for purpose and meet all health and safety requirements. And again, we spend about £2.5 million a year on the local authority maintained school estate to ensure that they are fit for purpose. Another of my responsibilities around school organisation. So that's making sure that we've got the right number of school places in the right place at the right time, and how we publish that. It also includes those schools where we need to grow capacity and go through statutory processes. It also covers in instances where we need to close schools, again because of the decline in birth rates. And again, I'll probably be back at the beginning of next year to talk to you all about the school organisation plan and what it would look like in your local areas. Again, I've got responsibility for SEND commissioning, so that's making sure that our children with additional needs that Jess works with, and work very closely with Jess and her team about, again, making sure that we've got the right place for the children as close to home as possible. So another significant piece of work that we do, and we've got a strategy again that underlines that, again, that I'll be talking to you about probably in the new year. Also got the statutory responsibility around academisation. So where our individual local authority maintained schools wish to convert to become an academy, my team manage that process on behalf of the local authority to make sure our assets are protected, the staff's terms and conditions are protected as they move forward to become part of a wider academy trust. Probably something that all members will at some point come into contact with from your residents, and that's around school admissions. So again, got that statutory responsibility around the process of admissions. And again, our portal will be opening on the 16th of September to start the process for the next academic year, 2026. So again, any questions or things that you might have or understanding you want to have around that, you know, please get in touch. Also got responsibility for those children who have been permanently excluded from mainstream education, and therefore those children need to have full-time provision by the 6th day of their exclusion. As you can probably understand, that is a growing demand in that particular area. And again, we've got an inclusion strategy that doesn't only touch on the work of my team, but across the whole of the council, and particularly children's services areas, around how we support children maintaining their places in mainstream education. Also got responsibility for revenue funding into schools. So currently I think we get about £210 million on an annual basis to distribute through an agreed formula, through our statutory responsibilities, through Schools Forum. So again, obviously that responsibility. General business support for the Directorate, making sure that we deal with our complaints timely, that our FOIs are answered in an appropriate way. And then our previous chief exec found out that I used to head up a school meals and caretaking and cleaning and crossing patrol provision in my previous authority. So I got responsibility for school meals as well. So that is something that's key to my call. There's another few things there as well, because again, I think a little bit like Neil is saying, collaboration is everything. We can't work in our silos. How we work with other departments is absolutely key to the things that I'm able to deliver. So again, really working with homeschool transport, working with corporate finance, working with the SEND team, working with commissioning to make sure our arrangements are robust and deliver value for money, and then also ensuring that Audrey doesn't end up in jail and support her with her statutory duties around health and safety. And I think I hand over to Audrey now as well. Thank you.
Indeed you do. Thank you. So I'm not Emma, but I am going to speak for Emma because she's not here today. So like Neil, I've included Emma and Neil into our broader set of senior team here today. Emma is Northumberland Specialist Service and Poverty Lead, but whilst she is line manager within Children's Services, is very much knitted into all the service areas across Northumberland County Council. So Emma also works directly with the North East Combined Authority, nationally in terms of some of that experience and poverty work, and is absolutely key around some of the inequalities, language, direction, how we describe what we do, and the shift in direction we need to make to do more to meet the demand that comes through. So what you will see on the slide are a number of areas there that Emma has described really is core to her work, and that's that strategic and ambitious support, not just for children, but for families, for households, and this is why it knits across the whole of the council. So invariably, we in our services may be dealing with a child, but there are other areas of the council who will be dealing with adults or dealing with households and connected family members as well, and other households. So really, really important that we don't, we are not, and we don't become silo-based, that we do think more broadly. Emma has a role around shaping that system-wide transformation and approach, integrating design, building resilience. It's quite a tough area to work in. We talk about the demand and send, the demand that comes across the doors around family needs and around child needs when we relate to poverty is quite staggering in terms of the approach. So having that joined up system is really important. There are a number of programs that we work, very, very successful holiday activity and food program. DFE championed this. We have spent many days down sharing our expertise, and just actually have done some evaluation with Northumbria University just last week around this programme. Really, really good. Delighted that the expansion and change over time has become so much more inclusive. We have learnt as we've moved, and the SEND aspect of the delivery that we have in our holiday activity programme is phenomenal, and some closed sessions actually that were only open to particular groups of children, very targeted, so that it met their particular needs. Really important to think about income maximisation in warmer Northumberland, moving slightly into a slight weather change. The sun is still shining, but we will start to hear some crunch around weather, temperature, etc. And we know that families will feel that difference. So really helping them to remove barriers and help them access the service support and the opportunities that they may need. Really important around our grant and commission design. 5 projects listed there under that. I won't go through them all, but really important that where I think David used the word around dynamic, being able to be responsive and change frequently to meet the needs of our residents, really, really important. We have been chosen to be one of the accelerators around the government's Test, Learn and Grow, and that will work beautifully around our best start in life, our work with the Institute of Health Equity, but also all of the things that colleagues have talked about, and I'll talk a little bit about more that in the wrap-up. But if I think about the social care reforms, the best start in life, the change that comes at us in children's, we have to be able to be ready and receive it and consider how we best place it. Like other colleagues have mentioned, Emma has been really clear to say her cross-sector working, I should really say, is so important. So if you think about our work with the VCSE group, primary care, private sector, corporate social responsibility, our VCS liaison, children, young people strategic partnership, our community's first approach, and she is our white ribbon chair as well. So a number of areas, and I haven't done Emma justice in any way, shape or form, because she is absolutely passionate about this work in the same way that you've heard all of the team talk about their areas so far. Okay, so just to summarise, I do hope that has given you some idea of the breadth and depth across children's. I am really keen and clear about the priorities that we revisit on a routine basis and understand they are the right priorities, that we are evidence-led. What do we know? What does it tell us? Because then we're able to come to you to make decisions, to scrutinise us over those decisions. Our governance is reviewed every year around children's. So we look at, Neil, does that work for us? We look at how we report. We make sure we've got all of our areas, having some internal scrutiny ahead of it all coming up to you. You sit at the top of the tree around that overall governance and scrutiny. And I am very clear about accountability. It's a word that is used regularly and routinely within children's. We have all talked about partnership, and I have to recognise the partners that we work with because they are part of the product and success of children's. Without the partnership working and having those relationships, knowing the people, sometimes they are difficult conversations and sometimes they are brilliant conversations. And it's okay to have difficult conversations because quite often we're both dealing with knotty problems, but being able to have that trusted and open relationship with key partners is so important to us. And so you will have heard colleagues talk around a number of statutory reports that we bring to you, and you will see that hopefully in our refreshed terms of reference where we've listed all of those. And of course, as a scrutiny, you are able to request some task and finish work. So I'm hoping that today what we have given you is that overview. We've given you, now got faces to the names. It's possibly the only time you'll see us together in one place. other than perhaps development sessions that we do want to do with you. But certainly in terms of scrutiny committee, it would be very unusual to have the whole team here today, as you have today, sat in a scrutiny meeting. It would typically be myself, David, Vicky, and then the report authors who would be delivering. So post today, I'm not going to ask you to put your hand up and say now what else you would like, but there are opportunities now for you to think a little more about some of the in-depth work, some of the areas that we cover, and you may want to understand a little more about that. So I will hand over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I said at the beginning, and Audrey did that, this was an overview, and I appreciate you've had a lot of information over the last hour and 10 minutes. So we will be sharing the slides, so you'll have a really good opportunity to, over the next few weeks, to have a look at those, and we'll be coming back to some actions, because I like some actions from these things. But what I thought would be quite interesting is just to make a few observations from my side. Then I'm happy to take a couple of general comments from members. But I hope you've got a bit of a flavour that what the team does, the action is based on evidence. They don't rock up, Audrey doesn't rock up one morning and go, oh, you know what, I think we'll do something, we'll look after children here. It's evidence-based. And as Audrey's rightly pointed out, that this is one of the most highly regulated operations, business units, departments within this council. And the presentation you've seen today isn't about these people sitting marking their own homework and come to say how wonderful they are. This is externally validated. External validation through Ofsted. We've had external, there's also peer review, so other people come and have a look at what we do. There's also massive amount of work that you can do as a scrutiny committee to provide that positive challenge, and in some cases actually influence, or I hope in many cases, influence policy within this council. So the task and finish groups, and we've got one, and we're going to come to that at the end of the meeting today when we look at the work programme. But we have an opportunity to do up to 3 task and finish groups, which Michaela will chair them, because that's how the Constitution works. But those task and finish groups help develop policy and also help make things better for young people in our community. And the 2 sort of big examples that I wanted to give you about the impact of scrutiny and how we are a critical friend, and how that external validation keeps these guys, holds their feet to the fire, is around school exclusion, which we had a couple of years ago. We brought in head teachers, we looked at the best, we looked at some of the worst performing, we came up with a plan. That plan was implemented, it had a direct impact, and we've recently had some work on working with dads, fathers, and that's resulted in some changes, and I know that there's Dad's Pad and local NHS are using that, so it's about involving the male carer in the upbringing of children, which is really important. So I think there's some really interesting things which have come about from today's presentation. It's also been a bit of a re-education for me, because going back to 2017 when I came in as deputy leader with responsibility for education, this council was a basket case. I am promising you it was. We had the judges in the family court telling us we were terrible. It was the first meeting I had. I thought, I'm going to go home and pack up. We didn't. And I just Googled when we were talking there. Politicians often tell you something and never deliver on it. Back in 2018, February 2018, it's in the Chronicle Journal and in the Northumberland Gazette, and it's still online. I promised an education revolution, and that's exactly what happened. Ofsted, it's been revolutionary. The investment in our schools, the investment in specialist schools, the investment in Northumberland skills, the children's homes, supporting more children locally, the uplift in our educational attainment, the work that we've been doing, particularly around the new welding centre in Blythe. That came back from a scrutiny committee, by the way, where people were saying, oh, there's a lack of MIG and TIG welders. And I remember going around with the chief exec at Blythe Port. He was saying, oh, can I get them? So what have we done? We've invested money where our mouth is, action based on evidence. So, you know, I could wax lyrical about how wonderful I think Audrey and the team are. They are the front facing. There are loads and loads of people who sit underneath, you know, ranging from your cleaners, your domestics in schools, through to your social workers, through to your foster carers, through to those people who do home support for our special education needs and most vulnerable children. There was a whole team which has made this happen, and it's happened because there's been leadership. And, you know, we've got Guy Rennie-Thompson couldn't unfortunately make it today, but I just want to assure you that back in 2018, we promised investment, which is exactly what we've done. So it's delightful for me to sit here and actually see, you know, a few years on, we've actually made some impact. And your responsibility now, the scrutiny, is hold to account, critical friend, but also to look at how we can develop policy. So those are my kind of little summary bits from today. We're going to share the presentation, but I just wonder if there are any kind of comments that anyone wants to make before we move on to the next agenda item, because I do appreciate there was a lot in that presentation. So I'm happy to take any comments. Councillor Hill from Berwick.
That was really useful, and as you alluded to, and it's not just anecdotally, my experience working with them, the evidence is there, how well, outstanding is the word, that the team performance. It's just a couple of things. The first is regarding SEND, and Jessica, I think, made a comment, something that I was thinking about speedy resolution to children, young people who have special educational needs. Quite a lot of feedback that I've had from residents, and I know this is external, this isn't GPs, is the length of time to get assessment. So I'm often having, you know, housing need or issues at school, behavioural issues and so on, and they're saying he or she is being assessed, is down for an assessment for various, you know, within the SEND sort of scope, but the waiting time is ridiculous. So I don't know if you're aware of that and what can be done on that. And the second question is to Sue, who I thought was actually about to say she's got a part-time lollipop lady job at the end. It's not about that, but we are short of those. So. Just regarding, and I'm not talking about the school at this stage, anything, the specifics of that, I'll get onto that maybe later in the meeting, but just regard your part about assets and what's going to happen with the vacant Berwick Middle School and Tweedmouth Middle School sites. I know it's sort of a complex business and there's challenges about school playing fields and so on, but I was just wondering, has there been any work done specifically on that? What's the rough timescales, and where are we at the school playing field strategy?
So I'm going to address your second point in a second. On your first point around SEND, as you will have all heard from news over the past couple of months, there's been an explosion in EHCPs, educational healthcare plans, which incidentally are a lot better than they were ever. But I think there's been a lot of movement for parents to demand them, quite rightly so, because parents are really genuinely concerned about their children. Within the strategy we have in this local authority, we absolutely have a commitment to specialist schools. So we've got new provision in Ashington, Hexham. We've got also inclusive support within some of what we call our mainstream schools. But in terms of the timescale, what I think, to do your question justice, we can get you something after this meeting, unless an officer wants to take that up. But I think there is, Dave wants to bring that up, but I would say that the demand around EHCP is probably one of the factors, because we don't want to get it rushed, we want to get it right. But David, if you want to come in on that?
Yeah, we'll do. There's a couple of things which, in terms of the evidence base, and I think feedback from residents is vital in this. So I'm not dodging the point in any way, shape or form, because there's more that needs to be done. But there's a couple of things that are some from the fact side of things. In terms of our healthcare colleagues and friends, actually a lot of our waiting times for Northumberland are less than that across the North East and less than that nationally. We've just had some feedback recently from DFE who the censuses are indicating. Now, though we might be doing better than others, doesn't mean it's good enough. But the fact is that waiting times are less in Northumberland than in some other areas. The other side to it, which I think is an important point, is that from an educational perspective, I'm certain from a social care perspective as well, if we wouldn't wait for diagnosis in order to intervene or bring in interventions in place. So we wouldn't have a young learner, whatever setting in Northumberland, if that young person is demonstrating, for example, some autistic traits in their behaviours, we don't have to wait for a diagnosis of autism before we start to introduce strategies that will support them with the learning, that will support them, the family at home and so on. So,
is that the attitude of the schools themselves, though? Because some of the feedback's been the schools weren't taken into account. I think he or she's autistic, for example, because they haven't got a diagnosis. Is that the attitude of the schools as well?
The inclusive culture which is growing across our schools will be the opposite to that. I can't say at the same time that that's never happened in any of our schools, that's the case. But certainly the opportunity for a school to access literally on a hotline to our autism service, to ask for support and guidance, the very earliest levels of experience. For a parent, though, I can also recognise, of course, you want the very best services sort of immediately and so on and so forth. Where that's not forthcoming, we welcome that feedback so we can intervene and support with that. But across just one of the points Wayne was making about the EHCP assessments, we have had a challenge over time in terms of trying to complete those assessments within the 20-week timescale. I think at our lowest point we were running at an average of 24 weeks. We're now, our average is 21.5 weeks. We're getting 80% of plans completed within timescale now. That is against a national backdrop of 49% completed in time. So again, we're not complacent. There's still 20% of applications not completed in timescale. We need to get onto that. We need to do better with that particular aspect. And some of those residents may well contact you with a really valid point. And we just need to keep communicating so we can get on top of it, make sure that there isn't any outliers that are really disadvantaging a young person.
Good. And on your second point about Berwick, much as we would love to spend all of this meeting talking about Berwick, what I think to do you justice is that Sue is sitting there. Sue, if you're available after this meeting, would you be happy to have a catch-up with Georgina and to be able to address some of those points in detail?
I mean, obviously many, but I know it's a big issue, what to do with vacant school assets and so on, and it's a piece of work not just relevant to
Absolutely,
Berwick,
we'll pick that up, but thank you for raising that, and thanks for Sue for doing that. Any other comments, questions from anyone? Councillor Sue Fairless-Aiken.
Excellent. Yes, it's about budgets. It was brilliant, and obviously I've been here for 4 years, so I kind of know the work that you do, and a lot of you, and how brilliant it is. There was a lot of references to sort of grant-funded departments, or where you need to go off and get money from DV or other sources. I'm just wondering how much, I know SEND's being revised, and that's a little bit of a worry. How much comes from the council of the budget, and how much do you have to grant source? Because it seems to me that at the moment we're in this predicament, and everything sounds wonderful, and the SIPS report looks amazing, but the regional inequalities for the North East are profound, and we've just had obviously the GCSE A-level results, and it's really quite worrying. And it's the North East that's falling even behind the 2019 results that they had. So even pre-COVID has fallen here. And so we're brilliant, obviously, in relation to ourselves and Ofsted. But I'm just wondering how much more money needs to come from the government, how much money needs to come from the council to fund all these amazing services properly, so that we can get proper regional equality, because I'm really worried about how far our kids in the rural areas and working class kids are falling behind London and the South. That's my questions about budgets. Do you have the budget you need?
So I'll take that first, and then I might want to bring Audrey in on the technicality of the budget. I don't know the ins and outs of every pound, shilling and pence. But what I would say to you is we've run a very tight ship in this local authority, because we've really maxed every pound, as you have seen, from what this team does and the impact of the investment which we've put in as a council. We have also received grant funding, but the impact you can see in results. You can see it across the board within education. So they're in a very efficient team. We could always do with more. And what I would say to you is, on those inequalities have been around for a long time. On average, a young child in London will probably be around 2 grades better than us in this area, and that's even from some of the more challenging boroughs in London. And again, going back to some conversations I used to have with DFE, we wanted to develop an education challenge in the same way that London did, which was investing in teaching, investing in schools. We're investing in schools, that's great, but also investing in supporting some of the communities around the wider inequalities agenda. And I think what you've got from this presentation is an overview of the work that Emma's doing and that all of the team are doing on the 3 core values, corporate values, and one of them is around inequalities. So we will make sure that we can do as much as we can with the money that we've got. But I'm going to say to you, on a political level, we absolutely need more. And in my view, we should have that education challenge, that funding, which London got a number of years ago under Boris Johnson, believe it or not, but we should have that here, because if you see the impact of running a tight ship, what we could do with even more. So there's a political bit, Audrey. I don't know if you want to add in on some more thing around grants, but yes, we would love some more money. And I'm sure the Chancellor will announce loads of it on the 26th of November, because the economy is doing so well.
Thank you, Chair. You're quite right. We do have a number of grant-funded services. They are what I would always call recurrent grant services. So Northumberland Skills, for example, that is it's guaranteed as long as you perform, and we aim towards priorities. Hence, I think Mick talked and Chair talked about skills as very different. So if you looked at it 6 years ago to now, it is totally transformed because it meets priorities. It is evidence-led around what is needed for Northumberland, for our businesses, getting our young people into jobs. That has grown in terms of grant monies. So it's almost £2 million more than it was in the last 3 years, and continues to grow. So our ability to shape and redesign what is required around the evidence can often lead to more money, so it's successful in that way. It would be wonderful to have an education challenge, and the whole of the North East would love that and benefit from that without doubt. A number of our service areas, you know, we work through some central budgets that come from DFE. We provide, I believe, very good value for money in terms of how we spend those budgets. And also the impact that they get from the budgets. So it's always great to have more money if that was, but what I'm not saying is we can't do things because we haven't got that. We work really hard to try and manage and work our services within the budget areas. And again, ebb and flow according to particular priorities, as we've shared with you today.
And I think also, if I can just add, there is an absolute commitment from this administration to support our education of young people in our send. So those budgets, and I know that Glenn is passionate about this, so we will have a watching brief on that one. But if the Chancellor's watching, more money, please. Thank you. Right, I'm not seeing... Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, I haven't got all the experience, but my questions are very random. I mean, I hope that's okay, but and they're mostly not questions, they're just comments, really. Thank you for the very insightful presentation. Excellent. I mean, it's very, very useful for me. A few comments, really. And a question, first of all, a very easy question, I think, probably for Mick, and that was these leisure programmes. Don't know if you could maybe tell me a little bit more what these leisure programmes for adults actually are, because that was interesting for me particularly. The alliances model in partnership in Cumbria, that was again, something, yeah, there might be things over in Blythe, but I'm more interested in things over towards the west of the country. Hawk Whistle gets missed out, we feel, quite a lot. But therefore, something that's in Cumbria would be, of course, very interesting. So I'd be interested to know what that's all about. And also, David, yeah, and it was all very positive, and you mentioned the strengths. I'm you know, it's not nice, but we were told to be critical. I guess that's probably what you're going to be working on towards in the future, of course, would be maybe the weaknesses, but that's not for me to hear now, but I guess that's what you will be looking at. So yeah, those two matters really, yeah.
Mick, I'm going to have to bring in Mick around those leisure programmes, and then if David can pick up on the Alliance and how we're using weaknesses to inform delivery.
I think just to try and contextualise the heading of leisure programmes, our adult education budget does support some programmes now that we offer, that are dressmaking, we offer from a leisure perspective. We offer Spanish, and we offer painting and fine art currently across more in the west actually, but there's dressmaking that occurs west and Berwick and Morpeth as well.
Okay, interesting. Yes, I shall. Okay, thank you. Right.
Didn't expect that one, did you?
No,
right.
at all. It's
David, could you pick up on the Alliance and also on how we're using weaknesses to inform improvement?
Yeah, I'll do the weaknesses first side of things.
Oh, you don't have to.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We've got self-evaluation which highlights both strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, I have highlighted some strengths there. I'll ping everybody possibly last year's annual report, which does highlight the areas for development in each area of the service, each service area, and the reasons behind those. And really, I suppose, if you, not in all cases, but if you read the sort of the priority slide in terms of the action areas that are taking place, that'll identify, not always a weakness, but certainly will identify where we think that the outcomes could be better. And therefore we've particularly highlighted those. Read through the priorities and you'll see that bit to highlight those. For alliances, I'm going to pass over to Mr. Cookson, who will talk specifically about how the alliances may be impacted in the West.
If it's all right with you, Councillor Matheson, I have got slides on that in my presentation coming up, so we'll talk about alliances. I'll give you the background and the detail on alliances then, if that's all right with you.
Right, okay, and Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid my question was for Vicky Mackay, who's left, but I don't know if anybody else might not know the answer. First of all, I'm very proud to be part of this committee, and when I've heard all of the passion and commitment that everybody has said today, so well done to you guys. Vicky mentioned that they'd had a survey from young people, and there was over 1,000 replies. I wanted to know how many children have we actually got in care. I wouldn't have thought it would have been 1,000. But secondly, I'd also like to have access to that because I'm on the youth committee at Ashton Town Council and we'd like to have ideas of what children want for provision.
Vicky, could you pick that one up, please?
Yeah, that's not all of the children that we have in care, just to assure you. I think as of Monday we had 498 children in care, so it's broader than that and broader with all of the families that we work with as well from that survey.
And any other comments, questions? Mr. Bird.
A very positive comment, colleagues. When we met on Thursday the 17th of July, we briefly discussed the amount of acronyms we're fond of using. And I'd just like to commend the authors of all those reports who seem to have gone out their way not to just to use the acronym and to actually explain what it means. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, I am genuinely conscious that you've had a lot of information, so we're going to share the slides for you. A little bit of homework. What I'd like you to do is take them away, have a look at them, scrutinise them, and then come back to myself and Rebecca and just say, this is something I'd like a little bit more detail on. I'll have a chat because I've got a meeting next week, I think, with Audrey and the team. So please, if you can have a look over the next few days, if you can pick up some areas that you'd like a little bit more information on, I can either get a written summary sent to you directly if it's a pertinent question like Georgine asked about Berwick, that's very specific. But if a general comment, we can either look at it as an information item or we can look at it as part of task and finish or indeed part of a substantive report. But I think we'll all agree that what we've had is a really good opportunity there to see the depth and the breadth of the work which the team are doing, and we have literally scratched the surface. So, and I'm sure on behalf of everyone, I'd like to pass on our thanks to all of the team. Thank you for coming. You know, we will send that report out to you for you to look in a bit more detail. Right, we are going now to move on to item number 5 in the report, which is the annual report of the school improvement team. Is it Dave Cookson? You're taking that one. Right, Dave, over to you, and this is on pages 15 to 26 of your agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I have a brief presentation just to embellish on some of the points in the report and just to bring you some new information that has arisen since the report was written at the end of July. This is an annual report, so it covers the last academic year, and I will be back in September 26 to do the same thing. So it's to give you a flavour of what we have been doing and the outcomes that we have achieved, or the schools have achieved, in the last academic year. So as David's mentioned, in terms of Ofsted, we have continued to have very high outcomes. It's very difficult to give you comparisons now over time because of the ways that Ofsted have changed their frameworks, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail shortly. Key Stage 2 results are improving. We had a focus on supporting schools with their maths provision in the last 12 months because at the end of 2024 there was a gap that we felt that was too big. We have seen improvement in particular in maths, so we're very pleased about that, and that work will continue across this academic year. Key Stage 4 results are slightly down at 4+ with English and Maths and 5+ at English and Maths, but the Attainment 8 measure has improved since last year. Those results are not finalised as yet, and we won't have national comparators until October, November time. And similar at Key Stage 5, the A-level performance is slightly down compared to the county last year, but the applied general qualifications there, their overall performance has improved. And again, we'll get national comparators later in the year. To take you back to October 2013, when Ofsted looked at the county as a whole and were less than encouraging with what they thought, the School Improvement Service was remodelled in 2014. David arrived in 2015. I arrived in 2016. And since then, we have built up the team to the team that we have currently. And by the time we got to 2024, outcomes in terms of Ofsted were the highest they had ever been, 94% of schools good or better. Ofsted changed the framework last academic year, so we can't compare those outcomes with the outcomes that Ofsted provided last year, nor will we be able to compare them with outcomes going forward because the framework changes again this academic year. We don't currently know what that framework looks like. It hasn't been published. But there won't be any Ofsted inspections until November at the very earliest this academic year. So across last academic year, we had 18 graded inspections. The graded inspections don't give you a single word judgment overall. They looked at up to 6 different sub-judgments. But in the 18 schools that were inspected in Northumberland last year, every single school, for every single judgment, sub-judgment, was judged at least good, which is, as you can see, better than the national average across all of those different sub-judgments. In terms of the ungraded inspections, where there were 4 potential outcomes, we also had 18 inspections, and you can see that in some cases we are doing slightly better than the national average, others not so. We had one school where Ofsted felt that their provision was much improved on the previous visit, but because the inspection was ungraded, they weren't going to change that grade, but they did say that evidence gathered during this inspection suggests that the school's work may have improved significantly. That was at Collingwood. We had 3 schools where the inspection team felt that the provision was not as strong as at the previous inspection, and that was at Astley Community High, Kielder Primary School and Bellingham Middle School. The vast majority, 14 out of the 18, were judged to be doing as well as they were at the previous inspection, 1 doing better, and 3 that obviously the school improvement team need to work more closely with to ensure that provision continues to improve over time. In terms of monitoring inspections, these were for schools that were judged less than good. There were 3 monitoring inspections last academic year. All 3 were judged to be taking effective action. So those 3 schools, the inspectorate were pleased with the improvements that they saw when they visited. Looking at the schools that have been judged less than good, and again, it's a historic judgment because good doesn't exist anymore, but we have those schools that still need, according to Ofsted, a fair bit of improvement to get to where we would like them to be. We have worked very closely with Bedlington Whitman Memorial C.V. Primary School, and our view is that that school will be much improved when Ofsted come back. Whatever the new framework might look like, we feel that they're going to be successful. We have been working with Haydenbridge High School. They had their monitoring visit, which was successful, and they are part of the RISE programme with the DFE. So the DFE are providing 3 Northumberland schools with money to the school that the school can use to pay for improvements. That work has to be done in conjunction with either an academy trust or a local authority school, as that school chooses. So Haydenbridge High School are working with Cumbria Education Trust. That's their chosen partner, as brokered by the DFE and agreed between the school and Cumbria Education Trust and myself. So they have the finance to improve, and the plan is sitting with the DFE for sign-off as we speak. The academies on the right-hand side, we tend to work less with because the academies generally don't buy a school improvement SLA with the team. So we tend to have less input into those schools. But should those schools want support, we would be happy to offer it if they require it. They simply need to ask. And that's the case for all academies across the county. So in the last academic year, we've offered support to the 16 new head teachers across the county. We support on-site 28 schools of the 39 that were inspected. Again, they will be the ones that have a service level agreement with the school improvement team. We've run 83 different training events. We have nearly 100 head teachers that we have supported the appraisal cycle for. Nearly 100 that use the school improvement partner service. Over 2/3 of the schools across the county use our moderation and assessment support, and the Northumberland Education website continues to be the place that Northumberland schools go to get any relevant information they need. Over 100,000 views of that during the last academic year. In terms of alliances, we felt just over 18 months ago that the model of partnerships, where every school across the county was geographically linked, generally to the secondary or high school that they fed into, we felt that that model was starting to break apart, probably because the academies, as more schools academised, they tended to work within the schools within their academy trust rather than the schools within their geographic area. And we felt that there were some local authority schools that were sort of being left behind and not having those critical friends to talk to or those other schools to work alongside. We did have an example of one school in one partnership where it was the only local authority school left that didn't have a support network around it, a formal support network around it. So to that end, we decided to set up alliances, and they are simply groups of schools that choose to work together. The difference between partnerships and alliances is the schools could choose which other schools they wanted to work with. So it wasn't strictly based on geography, although the vast majority of schools have decided to continue that geographical work because it is far easier to bring your staff to schools that are nearby and so on and so forth. So the idea is that they can share their resources, they can share their knowledge and experience, and we can also achieve some economies of scale around resourcing over time, we hope. On Tuesday morning, we had 120 teachers in this room for their annual safeguarding training. The beauty of that was bringing the staff together, their ability to talk to colleagues who do a very similar job in a different school. Because ultimately, the vast majority of teachers are facing the same sorts of issues wherever they may be across the county. So to share those experiences and ways in which things might be improved is very, very powerful. And of course, it meant that Justine, who was presenting the safeguarding presentation, she only had to do it once to staff from 8 schools rather than traipsing around 8 separate schools to deliver the same presentation. So there's just one simple example from this week. So we have 8 alliances across the county, 70 schools involved. All schools that purchase a service level agreement from the local authority for the school improvement team are eligible, plus standalone multi-academy trusts. Because again, if they stand alone, they don't necessarily have that support network of other schools around them. There are a small number of schools that have decided not to participate in the alliance model, and the offer is open to them at whatever point they feel that they are wanting to come on board. Some were very close to inspection and felt they wanted to focus on that. Others felt they already had a support network that they were happy with. But the offer is always open to those schools to join in. We're currently working on trying to write down exactly what the tangible outcomes of the alliance work is. It's difficult to find the tangible outcomes because there are so many things that impact on achievement and outcomes in school. But certainly talking to the staff, and in particular the head teachers, they feel like they are very well supported by their colleagues, most importantly, and continually by the school improvement team and the wider education teams as well. So we feel that the school improvement team have the ability and the track record now of supporting school and improving outcomes. We feel that we are very well regarded. We provide the training based on what the schools need, and it's based on evidence. We are about to embark on a very large piece of work with the Education Endowment Foundation, which is all evidence-based. More details about that will come later in the year. We note that Ofsted outcomes are improving and are at an all-time high, but there is a difference between that and the outcomes in terms of GCSEs and so on, where they are not as good as we and the school leaders would like. We know there is a difference between the two. So that's why, for example, we put the specific support into maths. We will continue to work. We always try and work on improving outcomes for young people. That's our job. We do that through the support and challenge with school leaders in particular. We are very grateful to the local authority for the finance, ultimately. The DFE removed the improvement grant that the school improvement team used to get, which was around about £300,000. That money was used to pay for the team or to go into schools so that they could broker the support they needed. That was removed in 2021, 2022. So we are a team that is SLA funded and supported by funds from the local authority, and we are very grateful for that so that we can continue the work that we are doing. Going back to the Ofsted inspection in 2014, when they said we didn't know our schools at all, we feel now that we have a very good grasp on the strengths and the areas for development of all the schools in the local authority, in particular the maintained schools, because they are the ones that we tend to work very closely with. But as I said earlier, should any academy want the support, we would be happy to offer it if that's what they requested. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dave. There's two things that I just take from that. One was the commitment, the financial commitment you've just alluded to, which the administration's put into supporting the team. And the other one is that line, there are no inadequate schools in our county. That's fantastic. Long may that continue. So, well done on that. So, I'm going to open it up to questions. So, I've got Suzanne and then I've got Georgina. Okay, and then I've got Councillor Matheson. I'll take those three initially. So, Suzanne, and then Georgina.
Right, thank you. Well, three questions. The last one's the most important. But the first one was, I really don't value Ofsted one-word judgment, so I'm glad that's changed. And I did prefer the on steroids judgment and the mint judgment that came up last time. But I was confused about Kielder, actually. That there's a sort of paragraph saying that it, I mean, presumably it's in the granular detail, and this shows why one-word judgments aren't really effectual. I found it amusing that they're outstanding still, but the aspects weren't as strong, so presumably that's... so that, yes, that's my first question. Do you want me to...
So, yes, Kielder, their last inspection, their last full inspection were judged as outstanding. At their most recent ungraded inspection, the inspector said that the provision wasn't as strong, i.e. not outstanding, but he wasn't, the inspector didn't feel that it was below good. So, in a sense, if you wanted to put a one-word judgment on Kielder, I would suggest it would be good. But of course, Ofsted can't say that because they don't have one-word judgments anymore.
Right. I'm really pleased as well, just reassuring about Hayden Bridge and the RISE grant from DV. I think that's brilliant, and it is on a limb out there, and you know, it's still maintained. So to work with somewhere in the locale, if not QE, is great, because I think it would be a brilliant vocational and skills offering in the West as well, as opposed to the academic stuff that goes on at QE. And finally, you mentioned about the service level agreement, the grant that's not long, that now doesn't exist after April 23. It was taken away, which was a shame because I think we were kind of subsidising it, and you went to Cabinet to ask for that to be reinstated because the SIPS work is just so important. I think it was the first thing that I ever encountered when I came to the Facts Committee. It was one of the first reports I ever got, and I was so impressed. And obviously, and I think I quoted then, the cost of education is great, but the cost of ignorance is greater. So it does need to be funded. And I just feel that, are there any schools, you say that there's about 100 that come forward for this school improvement service, which is amazing. Are there any schools that you feel don't come to it because of cost? Is it the package that you offer? I presume it's worth it in every single sense of the word and penny. So do you think that puts some of them off, or is it just that they don't want to be part of an improvement service that clearly has results?
The vast majority of local authority maintained schools buy their school improvement service from the local authority. The small number of maintained schools that don't use the local authority do have a school improvement partner that they source from elsewhere. So I can assure you that every maintained school does have a level of external school improvement. Whether all of the academies do the same, I don't know. I would expect so, but I couldn't give you a guarantee that every academy is using external school improvement support. But I can give you that guarantee for maintained schools.
And do you think it would be costs that would put them off or not?
I think that there are a number of other SLAs that schools will stop buying before they stopped buying the school improvement service. So I think they feel that they get their value for money and that it's a very important service. But there are certainly other SLAs or other services where we've seen a drop-off in demand, and the answer from schools has been, we simply can't afford it.
And just if I can, just to pick up on one point, QE does academic, absolutely. Hayden Bridge is also academic, with those fantastic vocational skills bolted on. Fantastic facility up at Hayden Bridge. Well supported. Councillor Hill.
Thank you. It kind of follows on from that. It's relating to the 8 schools that require improvement. I know each school has their own sort of individual factors, but so I've got 2 points as my first one. In question, rather. Out of the 8, 6 are academies. So I don't know the exact, but I imagine that's very disproportionate. obviously lends weight to those who are against academisation. How should we analyse that stat? I mean, is it the case that more schools that were struggling became academies? Is it linked to the point they're not using your excellent service as much? So the first question is, how should we analyse that disproportionate amount of academies that require improvement? And the second point does relate to one of them. It is Berwick Academy. I imagine there's going to be a specific report on exam results coming up and comparables, but I have heard in good authority that the exam results have gone up and were good at Berwick Academy. I don't know if you can give any indication if that is, you know, factually correct, not just anecdotal evidence that I've heard.
In terms of the schools historically judged less as good, it is just what it is. I wouldn't necessarily read too much in it, because some of those schools became academies because of their poor performance. So it may well be the case across the country that a disproportionate number of schools that are or were less than good are academies. However, some of those schools have become less than good since joining an academy chain. So they went in with a rating that was higher than that. So I wouldn't necessarily read anything into it, apart from certainly with the maintained schools, we know that they are improving, and we expect that the academy chains are working very hard with those schools to help them get better. In terms of Berwick Academy, the data hasn't yet been published, but I think that you will be satisfied when you see the results.
Yeah, just in terms of the reasonableness or whether we can draw from that, it's such a small, thankfully, small list. Only 8 schools. Each school's going to cover what, 12.5% of the percentage rate. So I think it's probably better to look at individual schools there and the reasons why they are or aren't judged highly enough with Ofsted, rather than look for a pattern within that small subset. 8 schools, it's not enough to see a pattern, I don't think.
Answered your question? Yeah. Good, good. Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just briefly on the EEF, that was this new scheme that's coming in, but specifically to help maths. Is that right? And just to have a little bit more information about that, although you mentioned you're going to probably, I know, report on it later in the year, but is this for all schools or some schools, or what particular schools are going to get this programme? And is it only for 2 years as well?
So the Education Endowment Foundation is a national charity that tries to provide schools with evidence-based approaches to school improvement.
Okay.
So we are working more closely with them to look at some of the priorities in Northumberland, of which maths is one, and using the evidence base that they can provide to help schools build school improvement strategies specific to their school. The confirmation that we're involved in the programme only came through last week, hence we'll bring some more details to you later in the year. But it is a very positive step, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so you don't know how many schools are going to be involved? You don't.
We're at the stage of trying to work out exactly what the funding will be,
yeah,
and therefore what the number of schools that we can involve in the programme.
Exciting.
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Can we also share that presentation as well when we send the other PowerPoint out? The other thing as well, which I would do, if you get the chance, if you go to northumberlandeducation.co.uk, it's a really good website. There's loads of stuff on there you can have a look at, which is accessible. Sorry.
Share the link.
You can we'll share the link with you, even better. You don't have to Google it. But it is a very good, informative website, which is largely open. And it gives you a kind of an overview of the kind of support which the team offers to our schools. So, Dave, thank you very much for that. And please pass on our appreciation to the whole team who go out there and support our schools with their development. So moving on the agenda, we have item number 6, which is the report of the scrutiny officer. The forward plan, incidentally, We're going to circulate that by email to you because there's a couple of updates on there, so you should get that hopefully today. Yeah, and then I think, Rebecca, you've got a little sort of few comments on the family work programme for November.
Yeah, I'll share the work programme today as well with the forward plan, but just to give you a quick verbal update of what we've got coming for the next couple of meetings. So in November, we've got the care proceedings and public law outline annual report on progression, which will look at the work undertaken by children's social care and share the performance within pre-proceedings and care proceedings. And I've also got a couple of suggestions noted down, which I'll work with the colleagues to see if we can get them on the November meeting as well. And then in January, we've got quite a heavy meeting. We've got SEND capacity in place planning. We've got the Northumberland Skills annual report. We've got the school organisation plan. And we also have a report on sprinklers in school buildings, which was requested by members.
Okay. And in January, we also have the joint health and wellbeing and facts meeting, which Georgina, I think you'll be chairing that substantively for January, so that's something to note for your diary. Just during the course of the meeting, there were two things I just wanted to kind of get a bit of a sense check from you on. I think it would be really good if we got for November a report on the Social Work Academy. Sue Core normally comes along and does that, but I think particularly because there's lots of new members, it would be a good idea to give you a flavour of how it is we buck the trend around social work support and actually reducing massively the cost of using agency staff. So I think it'd be good if we can get that. And the other item, which I think, and Susanna, you kind of touched on it on a couple of questions, is around inequalities, and it was in the substantive presentation we had at the beginning, the work that Emma Richardson's doing around inequalities and how that sits within our corporate plan. So I think it would be good just to get a flavour of the sort of support which is being offered. And I'm not sensing any objection from anybody there, but if the officers can have a look at those two to see if we can add that to November's agenda, I think that would be helpful to get those in. But again, reinforcing the point, when we send you the PowerPoints out today, which will happen today, and the work plan and the forward plan, if you can please, over the course of the next week, have a look, see if there's any items there that you'd like a little bit of a deeper dive or a report on, or even a one-to-one discussion with officers if it's really particular to your electoral division. And I can have a discussion with Audrey about those next week. Audrey, you wanted to come in? Yeah, sorry.
Just Chair, I think if scrutiny members feel it's appropriate, perhaps we do workforce and the Social Care Academy is within that, so that you see the broadest, particularly because colleagues were talking earlier about how we're going to develop that around our residential staff. So you'd see some early shoots of the work going there. And also for the November scrutiny, you will have the SEND strategy. So that will go to SEND board at the end of September, and we'll be ready to come to scrutiny thereafter.
Perfect. Georgina, quickly then.
Thank you. If you recall at the last meeting, asked about the, I'm going to go on about plans for Berwick Academy, and the cabinet meeting was before, was scheduled to be before. That's now been pushed back, I believe, until late October cabinet meeting, looking at the business case. Surely this committee should be scrutinising that.
So what I would say, if you go back to the minutes, which you agreed at the beginning of the meeting, it said that that wasn't something we would do, but you have a meeting with Sue immediately after this. So if Sue can have a chat with the project teams.
Because of the timings of the cabinet, but now it's been pushed back. It seems ludicrous that a family and children's service is not scrutinising something like that.
Can we pick that up if Audrey and Sue can have a chat with you, because I'm not fully aware of all the granular detail about some of those changes.
I mean, we could have a one-item agenda in October on it.
Pick that up. But I would say we've never had, coming to scrutiny, a look at any school build. Ever. and I've chaired this for many years.
That's not a good reason why we should
Well,
look at it, though.
it's not, but what I would say to you is that we've done some phenomenal school bills, and I am supremely confident, and if you go back to the minutes, it says there are project groups, and I believe you're a member of one of them, and I've sat on project groups. I did it for QE, I did it for a number of our schools, and we delivered. So
I'm one that gets a briefing what's happened, not an opportunity for deep dive into the details, which
right, so
role of the scrutiny committee.
Can I ask that you take that with Sue, and if Audrey is available immediately after this meeting, because I think it's very important that, yes, you pick it up as the member, but in my experience, and I've sat on a number of boards, I've sat in boards, particularly for QE, when we went into even what the desks were looking like, and that is not the responsibility of this committee. So I'm going to move you on that one. Right, Susanna. Go on.
Yeah, I sent an email requesting, I think it was that, and David mentioned it earlier about new childcare. A requirement for that. That would be brilliant.
That's on my agenda to discuss with Audrey next week to make sure we've got the ability to produce those reports.
Brilliant.
And Audrey.
Just to say we've covered those all in terms of some of the agenda planning. I mean, you'll note today there's a further announcement around additional school places and nursery places announcement today. So that ever-expanding sufficiency is really important that this committee look at it. But we have included that, and so we've pulled everything that you've sent to us so far. Rebecca and I took a look at that, and then we'll talk about that with Chair next week. So we'll try and get it. So we haven't got an agenda that's got 15 items on an agenda with 2 items. So we'll manage it carefully.
You're on the ball. Perfect. Right. So I have not been informed of any urgent business. So I would like to thank you all for your attendance today. Reminder for your diary that the next fax meeting is on the 6th of November. It'll be at 10 o'clock in the morning as usual. And the work programme will be sent out today along with the forward plan. So thank you very much for your time. And Georgina and Audrey and Sue, if you can pick up your meeting afterwards, and I'll no doubt get a verbal report. So thank you all for your time this morning.